What's up, everybody? I am Nate, Mr. Fantasy Polvogt, and thank you so much for tuning into the very first episode of Dear Mr. Fantasy here on the Player Profiler Network. I am stoked to be here. I am stoked to be answering your questions every Thursday at noon Eastern. Send them in. I will answer as many as I can every week to help you get on the way to winning your fantasy leagues. It's a year-round endeavor, folks. If you're not in it to win it, then you're not paying attention in the offseason. That's why I'm here. Let's get those dynasty rosters right. Let's get you ready for redraft season come August. We've got a lot of time, but there's a lot to talk about in these months coming up, folks. We have free agency coming up in March with the new league year. We've already got a quarterback out there floating around for anyone to pick up. We've got the draft, then we've got OTAs and camp. There's a lot going on that is going to affect these dynasty and redraft player values, and we're going to talk about all of it on this show. Again, every week, every Thursday at noon Eastern. Make sure that you subscribe to the Player Profiler channel. You can set reminders so you don't miss any of the awesome, amazing, fantastic content on this channel, folks. We're going to get started here. We're going to go around the league. We're going to talk about just a few things that are going on here. We've got some news post-Super Bowl. You've heard enough about what happened in the Super Bowl. There's no reason for us to get into that. But what we do have, and I touched on it there in the intro, is Derek Carr. Derek Carr is now a free agent. He was released yesterday by the Las Vegas Raiders. Where is he going to end up? Where is the best fit? Teams right now that we know are probably looking for a quarterback. We've got Carolina, we've got Atlanta, we've got New Orleans, Washington, Indianapolis, Tennessee, and the Jets. Now, New York is an interesting case because there are rumors going around that they are interested in acquiring Ryan Tannehill. Tennessee has him under a contract where they owe him nothing guaranteed for the 2023 season. They could easily release him. It's about an $18 million dead cap hit if they do release him. But we've heard the grumblings. Now, we know that the Jets are more than likely making a big push for Aaron Rodgers should he decide to continue playing after his 4 days in a dark hole with nothing. The groundhog of quarterbacks, folks, when he comes out, we'll have a decision there, and we'll probably know a little bit more about what's going on with Derek Carr once we hear what Aaron Rodgers is doing. It's an interesting situation with Carr because he hasn't been phenomenal. He's been that mediocre, middle-of-the-road quarterback. What are we going to get with him when he gets to a new city, new town, new team? We don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch, and we'll talk all about that as we find out more and more about where he's going to go. Second thing up, folks, new coaches. We've already had some interesting hires here. All of the head coaching slots are filled at this point. We've got Steve Steichen, who went to Indy. He's the offensive coordinator from Philly. And it kind of seems like Jim Irsay has a thing for these Philly offensive coordinators. This is now 2 in a row that he's brought in. The question for me with Steichen is he actually a good offensive coordinator? He was stacked with talent. It's the same argument I can make for John Gannon, who went to Arizona, the Philly defensive coordinator. Howie Roseman stacked this team with talent. The best offensive line in the league. You've got Jason Kelce, who is a first ballot Hall of Fame offensive lineman, arguably. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Kenny Gainwell, Miles Sanders. These are all very, very good players in this offense. We're going to find out a lot about Gannon and Steichen in 2023. Are they worth what they are being paid in these head coaching jobs? Or is this going to be a Nathaniel Hackett situation where they just simply can't cut it? It's going to be interesting to see. But my most favorite, most exciting hire so far that we have seen is Todd Monken, the former Georgia Bulldogs offensive coordinator, is now in Baltimore, an offense that needs a spark, and he is the guy to do it. His Georgia team in 2022 averaged 501 offensive yards and 40.7 points per game. That's electric, folks, and he likes to throw the ball, and he likes to throw to pass-catching running backs. We can see J.K. Dobbins unlocked in PPR formats where he's seeing 6, 7, 8 targets a game. They might go after some real talent in the draft. I know they're going to upgrade their wide receivers. Rashad Bateman is looking to have a huge bump as is Lamar Jackson. I think we're going to see him throwing the ball more under Monken. I'm very excited to see how that goes. And the final bit of coaching news, it is rumored that Rex Ryan is the leading candidate to take over as the defensive coordinator under Sean Payton in Denver. Say whatever you want about Rex Ryan as a head coach. He wasn't great, though he did get his players excited. He was fun to watch on the sideline. He was endlessly quotable in the media. He's been a phenomenal defensive coordinator. And for a Denver defense that was already stacked and very good last season under Ejiro Aveiro, who knows what we're going to see. But I know that we're going to see Rex Ryan in Denver and a top-tier defense again, should he choose to lead that unit, folks. All right, well, let's get to it here. We've got a lot to get to. I want to say thank you, Jamie, for you being awesome. I love you tuning in. Tommy, I love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Robert Page, thanks for coming over. We see you on Player Profiler today every Thursday. It is a joy to see you here. Jason, thank you for tuning in for my very first show. This is awesome. We got love in the chat for Jason, from Chad, and we've got our first viewer question. So I'm going to go ahead and touch on this before I get to some questions that I received earlier in the week. What's Kahlil Herbert's value right now? Late second or a wide receiver like Josh Palmer or Donovan Peoples-Jones? And if he sees the primary role 60 to 70% of snaps, how much does his value spike? I've already got Kahlil Herbert pretty high up. I wrote about him earlier in the offseason for In Between Media that I really like him as a dynasty buy right now. I think you can get him for a late second or an early third, or a wide receiver like Palmer or DPJ. I would be 100% willing to give up that capital to get Kahlil Herbert on my roster. Here's the deal with Kahlil Herbert, guys. Plain and simple, he is going to be the RB1 in a run-heavy offense in Chicago in 2023. It is highly unlikely that they bring David Montgomery back when they've got someone like Herbert under contract who is shown to be effective. Last season, in a couple stints with David Montgomery out, he had 100-plus yards when he's seeing 15 to 20 carries. We know he's effective, and he's effective in the passing game. He's a great outlet for a quarterback like Jalen Hurts to get the ball out of his hands quickly when he is under pressure. Are the Bears going to be good? That's probably, that's a good question. They could be a good team. They're not going to win their division. They're probably not going to make the playoffs, but I see them winning more games. And I see Justin Fields progressing and becoming a top-tier quarterback, not just a Konami flash-in-the-pan type guy. What that's going to do for Herbert is that's going to allow him to run effectively because teams will be continuing to focus on Jalen Hurts. We could see Kahlil Herbert 1,000 yards rushing. We could see Kahlil Herbert with 50 to 70 targets in the passing game. We could see Kahlil Herbert realistically creep into that RB2, high-end RB2. And if he has a monster season, which is not outside the realm of possibilities, guys, Kahlil Herbert could be an RB1 next season. I know that sounds like a hot take, but we know the talent's there. And the way that they run this offense, they're going to shy away from the passing game. They're going to continue to keep the ball on the ground because it's the safest way to manage this offense. And as Justin Fields grows, we may see a little bit more passing, but it's going to continue to be a run-centric offense. And if Kahlil Herbert is the RB1, folks, he's going to be good. All right. Thank you very much for that question, Jamie. We're going to get to my first question that I got here on Twitter from, you know him as Jack Kavanaugh, Player Profiler today, savant, sage, genius. Here's his question. What are you most focused on in terms of fantasy right now? Well, Jack, it's the offseason. It's kind of hard to know with free agency coming in the draft what teams are going to be doing with some players. There are guys we know what their value is. The Jalen Hurts, the Patrick Mahomes, the Travis Kelce's. We know who these guys are. They're going to be tough to acquire. Those are going to be moves that you're probably not going to be making right now. But what I'm looking to do is to shore up my bench and to take some shots on guys who their value is kind of up in the air and we don't fully know even necessarily where they're going to be playing next season. A great example of that is Jerick McKinnon. He had a phenomenal end of the season, and I see him as a great complement piece to the emerging Isaiah Pacheco in Kansas City. What that means for me, from a dynasty perspective, is that I can buy McKinnon low because he isn't under contract heading into this offseason, into the free agent period. Kansas City will have to re-sign him. I think they're going to do it, and I think they're going to make him a key piece in that offense. But that's a gamble. So this is a time to take risks. This is a time to gamble on some bench players that have a potential very high ceiling, but their floor is almost zero. McKinnon could retire. He's a 31, going to be 32-year-old running back he might walk away. And there are also aren't a lot of teams that are going to be willing to take a chance on him. So he could be playing for a very low end contract somewhere. I personally think he stays in Kansas City. I'm taking stabs at guys like that. Hope I answered your question, Jack. Well, now from Brad Bolt, my dude in Australia, would you trade for DJ Moore? And if so, what would you give up draft pick wise? I like DJ Moore's talent, folks. I've talked about this many times, many places. He is a talented player, but the situation in Carolina hasn't been great for him. Now, we know that things are going to change. We've got Frank Reich in there as the head coach. We don't really know what his coaching staff is going to look like fully, but we know there are going to be some changes. We've heard rumors that they want to keep Sam Darnold around. I find that to be highly unlikely. I think this is a team that is going after Derek Carr or a quarterback in the draft. And if they do that, if they can find someone who can get the ball to DJ Moore, I absolutely want to be buying DJ Moore, but I'm not giving up more than the second round rookie pick. Or I'd be willing to give up a bench veteran for DJ Moore. There's so much up in the air, and I know his value is probably a little bit higher than that right now, but if you can find a manager that'll deal him for a late second or an early third round pick, I would do that, and I would do it now. His upside is very high. DJ Moore could easily be a wide receiver 1 in 2023 if Frank Reich can get this offense right, that's the question, right? Can Frank Reich get this offense right? He did it for a few seasons in Indy before the Carson Wentz mistake. He had Phillip Rivers playing well. If they go after a veteran, if they get a guy like Derek Carr, DJ Moore is a wide receiver 1. If they roll back out with Sam Darnold or they do something else in the draft, they get a quarterback, maybe they try and move up to get Stroud, Levis, Young, one of those guys, Anthony Richardson out of Florida. It's a little bit more of a question mark for me with DJ Moore. But that said, it's worth the risk to go after him if you can get him for a second or a third round pick. All right, folks, we got another one from Brad here. Is there a rookie from the last 2 years that will make a leap, and who should I target? So that's a good question. I'm going to go to the tight end route here, folks, because we know tight ends usually don't hit until their second or third season. And I've got 2 that I really like that I think you should be going after, especially because tight end is such a wasteland of a position. Outside of Travis Kelce and now possibly Mark Andrews with the new Monken hire, there isn't a lot of consistency at the position. We've seen Evan Ingram have a huge spike, Cole Kmet playing really well. Kmet's a guy I would be willing to go after. It's going to cost you a little bit because he did creep into that tight end 1 territory at the end of the season, and we saw the usage increase, but it's worth it. If you can get him for a second round rookie pick or package a couple of veterans, a couple of guys that probably aren't doing a whole lot of good on your roster. Guys I can think of include Paris Campbell, because we have a lot in the air. I'd be willing to deal Paris Campbell for Cole Kmet. I'd be willing to deal a Rondale Moore and Elijah Moore, maybe even a back-end quarterback, a Derek Carr, because there's so much up in the air with Derek Carr to get my tight end position right. Guys I like include Cole Kmet, Daniel Bellinger came on strong, and I think we're going to see a much bigger role for Bellinger in 2023 in New York. And the other New York tight end, the Jets, Jeremy Ruckert. I loved Jeremy Ruckert coming out. We didn't see much of him. He was hurt on and off. But in 2023, he's going to become a big part of this Jets offense, especially if they go out and get Aaron Rodgers. Guys, at this point in the offseason, I'm banking on changes in situations on players and hoping that their value is going to spike after I acquire them because of something that happens either in the draft, OTAs, free agency. That's where I'm at on this. And those are some guys that I'd definitely be going after. All right, folks, let's move. I've got one more from my boy Jack here. Does the fantasy value of the following QBs change if they switch teams? We've got Lamar Jackson. I'm going to say no. I really like what's shaping up in Baltimore, and if he moves teams, I think he's just moving into a similar situation where he's going to be used similarly. Like I said, I love that offensive coordinator change. Now, Aaron Rodgers, this is an interesting case because there's so much up in the air. I almost like him better on another team that's loaded with a little bit more talent because we know that Green Bay has a hard time for some reason going out and acquiring things that can help Aaron Rodgers. And they got Christian Watson, they got Romeo Doubs, they've got Randall Cobb coming back, Aaron Jones, and A.J. Dillon. Green Bay is a good offense. I like him better in New York because I like him paired with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. I think that is a phenomenal situation for him. And I think not only does that unlock Rodgers just a little, but I think it unlocks Garrett Wilson. And I think it just skyrockets Breece Hall's value, which can it get higher? Not particularly, but I think in this situation, it probably could get just a bit higher here. Now, Jimmy G, this is an interesting one. Places I kind of have this feeling he's going to end up in Indianapolis. Jimmy G is what he is. Jimmy Garoppolo is a middle-of-the-road quarterback in the NFL. He's not going to light your team on fire. He's not going to blow up the league. He's not going to be in the MVP conversation, but what he is good enough to do is to get your team to the playoffs. And he can elevate the value of a guy like Michael Pittman if they retain Paris Campbell. And having a guy like Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, I think, is a huge help. Not to mention, I think that Steichen with a guy like Jimmy G will probably let him air it out just a little bit more than Kyle Shanahan was letting him in San Francisco, simply because that's the kind of offense that they're going to run in Indy. They're going to run a pass-heavy offense. It's unlikely to be a heavy ground attack, especially if they're going after a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. They're going to throw the ball, which helps Jimmy G, helps, like I said, Michael Pittman. Jelani Woods could be a phenomenal kind of under-the-radar acquisition this offseason as well, to go back to a previous question. All right, we're going to move on here to my next question. This is from Jorge Martin, friend of the show. As of now, pre-NFL draft, how many running backs are you comfortable taking in the first round? Well, Jorge, I took a look at some stuff, and I looked at some player grades, I looked at some rankings, and I'm going to tell you there's one. I'm comfortable taking one in the first round, and that is Bijan Robinson, because I don't care where he goes. He is such an electric back wherever he ends up, and he's been mocked all over the place in the first round here. Likely the only running back to go in the first round, unless Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama ends up getting into that first round conversation. Pretty simply, it's Bijan. He's going to ball out wherever he goes. The talent is there, and the places we're seeing him mocked, places like Buffalo, where he can easily take over that backfield with James Cook as a solid complement. I've seen him mocked to Tampa Bay. We've seen him mocked all over the place. Quite honestly, he's the only one I'm comfortable right now taking in the first round. Plain and simple, that's about it. All right, folks, we're going to move on to our next question. Here we've got from Aaron Stewart. You all know Aaron from the Player Profiler Network. There will always be running back busts. Which running back do you think will be drafted top 10 in his position will be a bust in 2023? That's a tough one. With running backs, I kind of felt this out of Jonathan Taylor last season because he was so electric the season before. I have a hard time loving Jonathan Taylor, honestly, and I think he's going to be drafted top 10 in his position, and I think we see Jonathan Taylor finish outside that top 12 at his position. I have the same feeling about Travis Etienne. He looked phenomenal in 2022, but this is a team that is going to be throwing the ball a lot. They're not going to lean on him. They didn't lean on him necessarily a ton last season. He was just electric when he did have the ball. I could see him landing outside of the top 12 in 2023. Is that a little bit of a hot take? Maybe it is a little, but you know what? I'm okay with it. That's what we're here for. All right, guys, we're going to get here into some chat questions, and we've got a few of those. We're going to pop these out here from Tommy Taquito. Thank you, sir, for the question. Appreciate you tuning in. What are you doing with Tampa Bay wide receivers, Evans and Godwin, now that Brady is gone? Buy, sell, or trade away? So right now, I'm kind of holding on these two because I don't believe that both of them are going to be in Tampa Bay in 2023. This is a team that is in flux. They're in rebuild mode now without Tom Brady, and they don't have a ton of cap room to do much. They're going to need to clear space, and Evans and Godwin are the two largest contracts they have right now. More easy to move is probably going to be Chris Godwin, and honestly, probably I'm leaning towards buying Godwin right now because wherever he ends up, he will be the wide receiver one. I'm kind of hoping at Chicago. Honestly, they need to get that A.J. Brown type guy for Justin Fields. This would be the perfect situation because the Bears have a ton of cap room. And for Mike Evans, I'm probably going to lean more towards the sell side of this. The dude's been phenomenal his entire career. He just basically collects 1,000-yard receiving seasons, but he's getting older. We're seeing him get dinged up a little bit more. He's getting injured more often. This is a guy where I don't think he's going to be even a wide receiver 2 in 2023, whether he stays in Tampa Bay or he gets moved elsewhere. This feels like a Julio Jones arc, kind of, where, phenomenal years, but then he moves to another team. We're on the backside of a career, and he's just not as relevant as he was previously. So if you can move Evans, I'm all for that. I really think that you can probably get a lot for him at this point because of his history. So use that recency bias and get rid of Evans and get something in return that will help your team in 2023. All right, Nolan, thank you so much for the question. Would you give up a 112 and a 24 first for JT? I think I probably just answered that question in answering Aaron's question, because I just don't think JT is going to be the guy that everyone wants him to be. Again, we've seen flashes of greatness, but it's been too inconsistent. And he missed so much of the end of last season. I hate to say it, but no, I wouldn't make that deal. I wouldn't make that deal at all. I love him, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening. All right, folks, we're going to get into some more questions that I have here. So this is, again, from my homie Brad out on Twitter here. Do recent coaching hirings play any factor in the guys you target? Are there players from any team you are now targeting or selling? So yes, this is a huge thing for me. Coaching matters. Coaching matters so much. Right now, guys I'm trying to acquire include Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, and J.K. Dobbins because of the hiring of Todd Monken in Baltimore. In Arizona, on the flip side of that, I'm selling Rondale Moore. I'm selling Hollywood Brown. I'm selling DeAndre Hopkins, though I don't think he stays in Arizona in 2023. I'm moving off of these guys because I don't like the situation in Arizona. You've got Jonathan Gannon, who's a defensive-minded head coach, which is good for Arizona because their defense was absolutely putrid last season. However, we see how that translates to offenses generally, and unless he brings in a very talented, very dynamic offensive coordinator, which right now it's sounding like he's bringing in the quarterbacks coach from the Cleveland Browns, which is concerning to me because we've seen what Cleveland's offense is. It's not fun to watch. I'm out on Arizona players at this point. Now, with the hiring of Sean Payton in Denver, I'm back in on some guys. I love Cortland Sutton in a Sean Payton offense. Jerry Jeudy, I think, is a big-time buy right now because he's going to continue to be the wide receiver 1 for Russell Wilson. And guys, I would go out and see what you can get for Russell Wilson if you have him. And if you need a second quarterback in Superflex, it's worth kicking the tires to see how cheaply you can actually acquire him. His value is up and down, but it's going to be higher as the season progresses because we're going to see Russell Wilson get back to that MVP caliber play. I know that's a hot take, folks, but Sean Payton gets the best out of his players. And what we saw in Denver last season was Nathaniel Hackett just not knowing how to handle a team. So yes, Brad, coaching changes definitely are a big deal here. They make all the difference in the world. Okay, we got this question earlier from Jay Moore on Twitter. Who are your favorite Dynasty buy low QB targets in Superflex or players in general? We'll start with the QB buys. I already touched on one, Russell Wilson. Now, Trey Lance. Trey Lance is an interesting situation because we don't know if he's going to be the starter in San Francisco when he's healthy. All signs point to it's going to be Brock Purdy. Now, if Brock Purdy falters, which is totally possible out of the guy who was the last pick in the NFL draft and the least unlikely quarterback to start a game in 2022, it could be Trey Lance's team by week 5 or week 6, or San Francisco could move Trey Lance to a team that needs a quarterback. Carolina, Indy, Atlanta. It wouldn't be that shocking. I've had some pushback from people on this that no, they're not going to deal him. But if they're all in on Brock Purdy, why wouldn't they move him? I think Trey Lance, you can get him for dirt cheap and you can stash him on your bench. He can be your 3rd or 4th quarterback for almost nothing. And if you can acquire him and he takes off for that low value, you can do 2 things. You can start him and move one of your other quarterbacks for a haul, or you can get a haul for Trey Lance mid-season. Really, it's a win-win here because if you're getting him for almost nothing, you put him on your bench, you call it a day. And I think that's one of the most interesting moves you could possibly make here. All right, folks, we've got a player profiler comment, folks. Who will be the higher scoring offense in 2023, Denver or Pittsburgh? All right, folks, I really do like Pittsburgh's offense. You can laugh at me all you want, but I really think that Kenny Pickett is going to be a top tier quarterback in this league at some point in his career. I think he's a guy who's going to lead Pittsburgh to many winning seasons. They're going to keep that streak alive of being above 500 while Pickett is at quarterback. But I still think it's going to be the Denver Broncos. This offense is loaded. They've got a veteran quarterback. They're going to have Javonte Williams back here early in the season, week 3, week 4, week 5, after that torn ACL. This is an offense that really, aside from coaching, should have been really good in 2023. I think it's Denver, folks. I just think it's Denver. Maybe I'm crazy, but you never know. You never know. We've got a comment from Aaron here. Dante Johnson, though. Yeah, Aaron, I'm going to be honest. They're going to move on from Deontay Johnson. I think they're going to go after a wide receiver in this draft in the first round. I would love to see them get Jordan Addison back with Kenny Pickett. Had his best college season at Pitt with Kenny Pickett, where he had over 1,000 yards and he had 100 catches. This is kind of where I'm at with Pittsburgh. I like them, but Denver's just going to have such an explosive offense, folks. Comment from Aaron, 24-hour live streaming of going through 32 team salary cap situations. That could be fun, Aaron. I don't know that I have the stamina for that, but we could definitely talk about it. We could definitely try it out. All right, folks, let's see what we've got here. We've already hit that one up. Oh, here's my favorite question that I got this week, and then we'll round it out with some of the chat questions, and we'll get you out of here and get you back on your way on a Thursday. If your coworkers at Player Profiler were QBs, who would they be? Well, obviously Matt Kelly's the GOAT, so we're going to go with Tom Brady if Tom Brady was still playing. We've got Cody Carpenter. He's damn near the GOAT here, and we're going to call him Patrick Mahomes. Jack Kavanaugh, he's my dude. I couldn't love him more. My Thursday co-host, which I'll see you guys here around 7 p.m. Eastern with Jack tonight, so make sure you're subscribed and tuned into that show. We're going to have even more to talk about. Jack, I'm going to call Jack. I think Jack is my Justin Fields, man. He's a man who does it all. He's a jack of all trades. He comes out hot. He runs it left. He runs it right. He's bombing it down the field. Aaron Stewart, my dude. Aaron, you're the Josh Allen, man. You just bowl through it. That's what you do. You just run people over. You get your shit done, and you just get out of there, and I couldn't love it more. All right, well, that, folks, was our last question. I'm going to pop here in the chat here. What do we got? Oh, we've got Maddie. Great show, Nate. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you Saturday morning at noon Eastern. Would you rather have the 205 in the 23 rookie class or Jacoby Myers? Wow, this is a little bit tougher to answer than I thought it would be. Oh, I'm going to take that 205. There are guys I think you can get at the 205, not necessarily maybe a wide receiver. But I have questions about Jacoby Myers, and it sounds like New England is in the market for a wide receiver this offseason, whether that be through free agency or through the draft. I never loved Jacoby Myers, but it really just kind of seems like they're heading towards not using him as much, and they need another piece at wide receiver. They've already got Tyquan Thornton. If they're adding another piece, that's just going to cut into Myers' snap share, and I have a hard time seeing him doing much in 2023, so in a rare turn of events, I'm going to take that pick, folks. All right. I think we have pretty much covered everything here. Thank you guys. Thank you all for tuning in for my first ever episode of Dear Mr. Fantasy. I am Nate, Mr. Fantasy Polvogt. Again, I will be here with you every Thursday at noon Eastern on the Player Profiler Network. Make sure you like and subscribe. We appreciate the love, folks. Until next time, I will see you. Have a great week. I'm out.